Hello from Ride's House Farm Smallholding. So today it is planting day. We're a little bit behind this year. We haven't managed to get anything in yet. Just been too busy with other things, but we'll still have produce. So we have some potatoes and a lot of different seeds that have got to go into our no-dig beds and in some big pots that I've also filled with some manure ready to go. So this is what we have that's going to be planted today. So I've laid everything out on my kitchen floor so I could actually see what I had. So we've got quite a lot of different onions to plant today. We've got some red barons. How do you pronounce that? Sturon. So they're nice little onions, they are. Pretty good. We've got some Stuttgarter Giants to go in as well. So they're going to go in some bigger pots that I have. I'm going to pot grow these this year because I didn't get on very well putting them in the ground last year. So I'm going to pot grow them. And then we have loads and loads of seeds here. I don't think we'll plant them all, but we will put in quite a lot of them. We do really well with our carrots, so we're going to put quite a variety of different carrots in. They generally grow really well. I don't really like the mustards and the rockets, so they might just stay to one side. We've got some radishes to put in, and we've got some beetroots to put in. Probably going to put the parsnip seeds in as well, and then give a go at some of these other bits and pieces that we've not tried before. So kohlrabi, put some turnips in, celeriac in, got some cabbage to put in, some leeks, some cauliflowers. And then we might see if we can put some cues, courgettes and aubergines in, along with the peas and some French beans and bits in the big pots we've got as well. And then down on the small no-dig bed, I've actually got some potatoes to put in. Really should have put them in, but hey, they'll still grow. They'll still be good. So they've all chitted up quite nicely. All grown these lovely big long stems, so they're all ready to pot in. So next we're going to take this lot and go out to our pots and beds, and let's get planting. Okay, so these are our pots. They're all full of manure compost. I filled them up quite a while ago, so actually now hopefully you can see this. They've actually become quite solid, and they've really dried out. So it's really good stuff to grow in, but it does dry out if you don't keep it watered. So this has got really dry now. So my first thing that I need to do is just get my trowels and just give it a good fork over, just to break it all up. And go through and just break all these up as best as I can with the fork. Stick it up so then they become a bit more manageable. The soil becomes a bit more manageable, should I say, to deal with. Do that to all of these. Good old rake over. It's going to be a little bit of root in there because we had a few weeds that grew in these pots just after I put all the manure compost in. Basically, once I've dug them all over and they're quite broken up, the next thing I need to get some water and just give it a bit of a good soak in. Whoop. Just adjust that. I'll get that a bit wet. The problem with using the manure compost is it does dry out so quick. So what I'll do with these, once they've all been planted up, I will be putting a mulch on top. I'll probably put a straw mulch on the top of these, and the straw just helps to keep in the moisture. A good water, and I've broken them up. The next thing I do, which gives me a nice seed bed to work with, is I'll get some fresh compost, and all I do is I just cover the tops of the pots with a bit of fresh compost. Make sure there's no big lumps in there, just get them all broken up. That's my next one. Right, and then that is now ready to put my seeds in, or whatever I want to plant. That gives me a nice seed bed to be able to plant into. And also it will retain the moisture a bit better as well with the compost on the top. And then when I put the mulch on the top of that, it should help to keep the moisture in the pots really nicely. So all we need to do now is go and do the rest of these pots, and then we'll go and get some bulbs and some seed and get them in. Right, so they are now all top dressed, good watered, all broken up, and all ready to receive onion sets and seeds and plants that I've got to put in. So let's go and get them. To start off with our onion sets, I've got some Sturon onion sets here to go in. They're only small little onion sets. Whoops, there they go. Little tiny onion sets. Plant them with the root side down and the little pointy bit at the top. They need to be planted about an inch in, and then a space of about 5 inches between each onion set. So we're just going to pop these in, and you'll be able to tell if they're any good when you go to plant them. If you've had them for a little while, you might find a few that look a little bit like this. When you squish them, you'll find actually they're really flat, and there's no meat, as it were, inside that wrapper. So that wouldn't grow on. So that's just going to be one that's discarded. They should be nice and firm, so you shouldn't be able to sort of squeeze them when you take them out the packet. Find that some of these have started to sprout already, but that's fine, that's not a problem. So we're just going to plant these in this tub. So about 5 inches apart, about an inch just below the surface. So they don't have to be planted very deep. Right, they are all in. Then let's go and see what else we've got to go in. So I've got 5 pots remaining, and I found some petit pois peas, and I've also got some organic Kelvedon Wonder peas as well. So they're going to go in one of these pots. I've got a few organic French beans as well, so I will put those in to one of these. I've got some tomato plants that are coming on rather nicely, so I think they should be potted out now. I'm going to put these out. These are actually going to stay outside. They have been hardened off. So I've got a few different varieties, which are quite nice. I'm not even going to be able to tell you exactly what they are because they're all Latin names, and I'm not very good with Latin names. But we've got some plum tomatoes, some little tiny cherries, some beef tomatoes. We've got a good mixture. And they're not really the varieties you'll find in the shops. They're quite sort of a I don't know what to call them really. Not a rare variety, but just ones that aren't standard. We've also got some peppers and some sweet peppers and some chilies as well. So these are also going to go in one of these pots. So let's get these in. So with the peas need to go in at about sort of 3 centimeters deep, roughly. I never worry too much about measuring the depth or anything like that. To be honest, I just pick them up and just push them in. Basically hope for the best. It's generally worked for me. It does get very, very windy here, so yeah, as you can see, they've got a nice root ball on those now. So putting these in this big tub, so they're sitting just below the top of the tub. It'll give them a good few weeks protection while they're growing on from any nasty weather we'll have, and also it gives me a little bit of room to be able to put something over the top if I need to, if we're going to have a really cold night again, or if it's going to get really rough, I can just put something over the top just to protect these young plants. One can go in there. So that's another pepper. That's a jalapeno pepper. And that jalapeno pepper is going to go in with these guys, and which are the other tomatoes. So they will go into there. And that's all of our pots done. So next is to go out to our raised beds, or well, it's not our raised beds, should I say, it's our no-dig beds, and seed up the no-dig beds. So here we are at the smaller no-dig bed. This has all been prepped. Prepped it about probably about a week or so ago now. Topped it all up, broke all the soil up with a rake. Because on my previous video you would have seen that I topped this up with my manure compost, which generally is quite chunky and there's always big lumps. So we kind of want to break that up so it becomes quite fine. Once it's been down for a little while, it kind of does break up and become quite fine, but when you first put it down, it's quite lumpy. So we've broken it all up. We haven't really disturbed the soil underneath. We've just literally lightly broken the top surface up. I'm just going to take these rocks out because there is a few bits of road stone that have got mixed in with this. They can just go back. We did have the potatoes in here last year, and as you can see, there's a few still around that I obviously didn't take out last year. But anyway, we're going to leave those in. We've got some fennel and some red chard over there, but they're fine. They can be over there. We've got some more potatoes to put in this bed. I didn't have any trouble last year with any blight or any diseases or anything like that. It grew. They all grew really lovely in here. I wouldn't generally put potatoes back in the same place, but I'm going to this year because it's just easier. I'm sure they're going to be fine. I've got 3 different types. So I've got a Pentland Javelin, which is a first early, and then I've got a couple of main crops to put in. So I've got a Java main crop and a Desiree main crop to put in. All 3 of them I haven't actually planted or grown before, so this is a bit of a learning curve for us. So it'd be quite good to see what the yield is when they're ready. I got a really good deal on these. These were 2.5 kilo bags, and they were pretty much the same price as what I paid for a tiny little bag last year. So I thought, well, we'll go with those and see how they do. I'm probably going to fill about 3/4 of this bed, and then the remainder section down that end, I've got some courgettes, What else have I got? I think I've got some cucumbers and some other seeds that I want to put in down that end. They grew okay here last year when I put the seeds in, so I'm just going to try them again. Most of them actually I'm going to pot and grow on in pots and then plant out probably up at the big main bed. But I thought I've got an abundance of seeds, so I'll throw some in here and see what they do. So we're going to plant the potatoes, and yeah, let's get to it. I've actually brought out some other seeds that I can put in. So I've got some aubergine seeds, some courgette seeds, and I've also got some Q seeds. I put some of these over here last year and they didn't do too bad, but I think it was my lack of watering really over here that didn't make them come on as good as they could. So we'll get on that this year. So next job is to crack these open and get these in this bed. So with the courgette, or the cucumber seeds or the aubergine seeds, they're not very small. They're quite big seeds. You can see that they're quite big seeds, but they're quite flat. So when you plant them, instead of planting them so that they're laying flat on the soil, the little tip is to plant them so they're sideways on. So when you put them in the soil, they are sort of standing up almost. That just stops them rotting in the soil. And that is our first no-dig bed all prepped. What we're going to do now is give it a really good water. Hopefully it's going to rain. The clouds are looming in. It looks like we might have some rain, which would be good. But yeah, just got to get that watered and then wait for some shoots to grow through. We'll see what happens. On to the next one. All right, here we are at the larger no-dig bed. So there's a few things I've got to do here before we start planting. All of this is giant spinach. It's a really nice spinach. It grows really huge, great big leaves. And they are really tender and they're actually really nice to eat as well. They actually taste really nice and sweet. So they're a really nice leaf to put into salads and things like that. But the problem is, it's overwintered and now it's gone a little bit to seed. So I'm not going to dig it out. But what I do want to do is cut back all this really big seedy, woody growth. It's kind of right back down to sort of the bottom of the plant if I can. And hopefully that will then just regenerate and give me loads of fresh new leaves. And also it's all falling over because it's got really tall and it's encroaching on this part of the bed. So I've got to chop that back and hopefully get that to regenerate. Plus also here I've got loads and loads of radishes. So these are from last year's, probably from last year's seed that just got dropped from some of the radishes that went to seed last year. So I've got to pull those. They're getting rather big now, so they're ready to pull out. if not a little bit overdone, to be honest with you. Good thing with a no-dig bed though is everything just comes out the soil really easy. The carrots, the parsnips, everything that I grow in here, you can literally just get hold of, and it just comes straight out. There's no digging involved whatsoever. It is just, you just get hold of it and just give it a little tug. It literally just comes straight out the soil really cleanly. While we were cutting back the large spinach, in between all the plants, and it's a good job I'm actually clearing this out, I found loads of like almost rotting, well, it is rotting leaves. So that's not good. We don't want that in between all the plants, because that will just attract the slugs and the snails, and we certainly don't want that on the small plot. So there now is my gigantic pile of spinach that I've cut off. Look how big the bed looks now. It's a nice long big bed. So we found, in amongst all that, beetroot, some parsnips, and then quite a few different varieties of radish. I generally use these just as a marker, so I'll put one at this end of the bed and I'll put one at that end of the bed, and then when I put my line through, which I use either my garden trowel or my builder's trowel, just to literally run like a plough furrow line to drop my seed into, I'll drag this from my marker that end all the way down to the marker this end in a fairly straightish line. I'm not too worried about neat and tidy lines. So I just put my markers out, drag this from one end to the other, and then that gives me a nice little furrow to drop all my seed into. Then once I've done a row of seeds, and I use a piece of paper like this, and I've put here neighbours, campsite, paddocks, because that's the orientation of my bed that I'm looking at right now. And all I'll do is I'll get my pen and very crudely I'll just draw a line, and in between I'll just fill out whatever it is that I put in. And then I know when I have look at this plan, I can tell where everything is, so I'll put spinach in somewhere here in a minute, but then I'll know where all my lines are in this bed without having to do these labels, because I find that when I write these labels out and I use the correct pen and everything like that, the rain just washes them off, and then I'm stumped for what I've planted. Haven't got a clue what I planted in that row, can't read the label, so all I do now is use this as a marker, and I use a bit of paper, draw a line, scribble in whatever it is, and then so on and so forth. And then once this is filled up, I've got a plan of my bed. Bit crude, but it works for me. So that's how I set out my no-dig bed. It's a bit haphazard compared to a lot of people's, but it works for me, and I seem to get some really good produce from doing it. So we shall continue. I've also started writing out my plan, so I'll show you that now. So this is the plan, the start of the plan. So I've got the spinach in the middle, that's already there. And then I've planted a row of kohlrabi. And then next to that, I've got my Musselburgh leek. And then obviously I'll just continue along here with my lines until I get to the end of my bed with all my other seeds, and then obviously along this way as well. And then once I've planted everything, this page will be full and I'll know where everything is. So once all my seeds are in, that'll be us prepped and ready. We'll just need to water this bed thoroughly, keep it nice and damp. But that gives you an idea of how and what we do. I'm getting absolutely smothered by mosquitoes at the moment for some reason. But luckily I don't get bitten, so that's good. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. And next we'll jump over to our little feature of Across the Holdings. On this episode of Across the Holdings, we have asked the other smallholders to tell us about someone who has inspired or influenced their smallholding journey and how they have shaped the way that they live or work today. So let's pop over to Adri's Farmhouse Kitchen, Hart's Humble Homestead and Muddy Puddles Farm to see what their answers are.
Hi Jamie.
Hi Jamie. So you asked the question, well, it's quite long so I'm going to read it out. Your question was, can you tell us about someone who's inspired or influenced your smallholding journey and how they shaped the way you live or work today? So for me personally, it's my upbringing. I hope you can hear us because of these planes. So I grew up on a small holding and slash village life slash farm. I experienced all three. My grandparents lived in a small holding. So we lived in a very small kind of village community and we had the farm. So since I was a little girl, I was growing up with animals, growing our own food, preserving our own food. So for me, it's like second nature.
My inspiration is actually Adri. I'm not from any farming background, small holding background. This is all new to me. So my journey started when I met Adri.
Well, thank you so much, Jamie, for an excellent question, and we can wait to answer your next one. Bye.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi Jamie, I'm Kirsty, this is Dean. Nope, other way round, swap that. And we are Hart's Humble Homestead.
Answering the question of who's influenced us the most and how it shaped who we are today. Well, this one for me, there's some fictional people and a real life person. So the first ones are Tom and Barbara from The Good Life. But I grew up watching them and it showed that you don't need large amounts of land to grow as much as you can on where you are. So they really influenced me. And then as I was a teenager, Hugh Fearnley-Whittenstall, when he started the River Cottage series, and that just made it implant in my head that that's what we wanted to do. And I look at his books often, and it really shapes what we do today here.
Okay. And for me, who inspired me the most? Simple. Kirsty. See, I grew up in a city, so all of this concept I didn't even know about. And then I met Kirsty and she showed me how about growing your own, raising your own, this way of living, and it just clicked. So went from nothing to living the life all through Kirsty. So she's my most inspirational person and she completely changed how I lived as well because I live with her. So simple one for me.
Well, thank you for the great question, Jamie.
And thank you for having us on your channel. And hopefully we'll be back on again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi Jamie, it's Jo. Muddy Puddles Farm. Thank you for your question. It really made me think this week, and I had some really lovely memories doing so. Your question was, can you tell us about someone who has inspired or influenced your smallholding journey and how they shape the way you live and work today? For me, it absolutely had to be my dad. I grew up on a smallholding and we had animals, and I absolutely fell in love with all the animals, especially the pigs. They are my favourite animal. And although my dad wasn't a terribly successful smallholder, he had a childlike joy and he enjoyed learning new things. And he had some qualities. He had a quiet dignity and compassion for the animals, and he was honest and trustworthy, hardworking, and he had a huge sense of duty towards those animals. And for me, those are qualities, first of all, I would like to aspire to and reflect, but also qualities you don't find in very many people these days. So for me, my dad was a great inspiration on not only how to run a smallholding, but also how to be a really good human being. I have to say, he really inspired and encouraged us all to keep learning, no matter where we were in our lives or what part of our journey we were on. But learning is always a top priority for my dad, and that has held me in really, really good stead throughout my life in many aspects. There is still some things of my dad that remain. I have a lot of his old books, and the other thing I have is some of the rhubarb that he grew on the farm when I was younger. I went and dug some up and took it with me. So there are reminders of my dad around and about on the farm, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you for such a really, really great question, and I'll see you next time.
So they were all really great answers. So my answer to my question is really the person who inspired me the most was my nan. I lived with her since I was very young. Lived with her for many, many years. She was such a keen gardener. She'd worked in the land army when she was young and spent quite a lot of times working on different farms. And she just absolutely loved the garden. She loved planting, growing things on, cuttings, and I just remember spending a lot of time with her out in the garden. I can also remember sitting in front of the telly watching Hugh Fernley-Whittinstall in River Cottage, and also Monty Don, Gardener's World, who I still watch today. So they've had a bit of an influence on how we manage a small holding and how we grow. But also one of the big no-dig people, and how I got into the no-dig way of growing, is Charles Dowding. Love watching his videos on YouTube and seeing what he's doing, and he's probably the person that got me into the no-dig. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Across the Holdings. If you'd like to check out the other guys' channels, then all the links are in the description below. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.